would not speak her name, every time a little different, so you cannot predict when she is coming home. And when you look in her eye, you see it's falling from the sky. We are just borrowing. We are just borrowing to build our little empires. Pray we miss the brush fire. We are just borrowing. We are just borrowing to build our little empires. Pray we miss the brush fire.
For joining. My name is Farzin. I'm from Spartacus development team. I'm the development manager, and we are very happy and excited to have you in our second session of our Sparta-Town. As you have seen in the starting slide, we have quite a lot of stuff to discuss in this session. Before going through that, I just wanted to give you a little bit of background where we stand, and then after that I hand it over to the presenter. You have seen that we have 3 presenters today, and Bill, the product manager of Spartacus. We have Harvinder from one of our partners who are developing the one implementation of Spartacus, and we have Stan, the senior developer from Spartacus team. Each of them are going to cover different areas from implementation, product, and some technical topics. So far today, we have our community is growing. We have more than 1,200 people part of the community, and we have trained quite a lot of business consultants and developers, and then more demands are coming, and we're arranging more training. Moving forward, we're going to continue having this session of Sparta-Town that every other month on the 4th Wednesday of the every other month, we're going to hold this session. And instead of talking about the product itself, we're going to talk about a technical topic, and then we want to hear from a partner or customer about their experience developing and implementing a Sparta-Town. Having said that, I don't take too much time. I would like to pass it off to Bill, the product manager, to hear a few minutes about where we stand about the feature development and roadmap of Sparta-Town.
Hey, Farzin, can you hear me?
Yes.
And you see my screen?
Yes.
All right, hey guys, thanks for joining. I'm gonna give a 5-minute roadmap summary. Reminder that roadmaps are future statements, so none of this is commitment, but at the same time, we try very hard to follow the prioritization you're gonna see. Hot off the presses, my roadmap document on the documentation page hasn't been updated yet, but we juggled a little bit the prioritization for the next couple of months. So we just released a 1.3 with features such as ASM and coupons. You can see that in the release documentation. We're aiming to jam a whole bunch of features into our 1.4 release, which was originally scheduled for end of November, but because of many reasons, we delayed it till mid-December. So you can see in the list here on the left that we're looking to include support for variants from the apparel store, cancellations and returns, a wish list, selective cart, which is the ability to move something out of the cart when you're checking out, some significant performance improvements, support for context-driven services, which is the ability to sort of track a user's behavior and then provide recommendations, and a few other things. So as we get more to the bottom of the list, they're not guaranteed, but we're really trying hard to get these 5 or 6 things in. In January, we have a focused release on centering around adding accessibility to all the current features. So we're kind of pausing on features that rely on UI, and we're going to make sure that everything in Spartacus at that moment will have 5 or 6 keyboarding related accessibility features. And the point of having, let's say, a pause and making sure that Spartacus as it stands at that point has that accessibility functionality is that any new features that we implement, any features that anybody wants to contribute all have to support the accessibility requirements that we already support. We have about 27 requirements that we want to implement in total, but these 5 or 6, there's actually 6 here, but 2 of them are combined. These 5 or 6 are probably the most important ones to start and probably the hardest, so we started with these. And the goal for the rest of the year is to try to up this number to the point where maybe by the end of 2020, we've pretty much covered all the standard accessibility functionality that people expect. There's a lot more we could do, but that'll be determined at the end of 2020 to see what else we can do generically, because some of the accessibility requirements are very specific to use cases. There's a lot of architectural initiatives going on. So some of those might make it into the 1.5 release, so it's related to performance and more developer-friendly improvements. But the idea is that we're planning to move to a new major 2.0 around mid-February. The actual date will be revealed closer to January, February. I'm not exactly sure when this will be done. But the idea is that we're prioritizing highly the move to Angular 9 so that people can take advantage of what's available in the latest Angular framework. We want to add support for Ivy. We want to update our schematics so that it's easier for migration. There's a few other features we're going to try and include in the 2.0 release, but the most important thing is really to move to Angular 9. So as soon as we think that's ready, even if there are other features being developed that are important, we might just release 2.0. It's a big change. It's a new major, so that means it's compatibility changes, or it affects compatibility. So we'll provide documentation. The schematics will help, and maybe some scripts. But this was originally planned for end of March and maybe beginning of April. But we realized that it was more important, based on feedback, it was more important to move sooner to the new Angular framework than wait. And that being said, actually, before I go to the last thing, any feedback anybody in this group wants to express to me on these priorities, I'm very much interested in hearing. I have my own prioritization thoughts, of course, but I love to hear from developers and partners and customers and see if we can juggle things to better suit everybody's development schedule. Finally, as we get farther out into 2020, it gets harder and harder to be more specific, but we do have another theme starting of B2B support. So this is trying to achieve parity with B2B Accelerator. So Checkout and Commerce.org, otherwise known as my company, is the first out of the gate. We have many other B2B features that we want to add, but what we'll do probably is release a 2.1 with an MVP of B2B, so at least the minimum, the Checkout and the Commerce.org, and if any other features are available, we would do it then. But the architectural improvements and performance improvements continue. Whatever didn't make it into 2.0 will go into 2.1, and probably for the next couple releases, there'll still be more improvements there that are related to our migration to Angular 9. There's many more things on the roadmap. I just wanted to summarize the next, let's say, 4 big releases. Like I said, the documentation has not been updated yet. I'm going to do that today. And any feedback, please just contact me on the Slack. So that's it for me. Back to you, Farzin.
Thank you very much, Bill. If you need more information about what features we're developing, we have a webinar ongoing that is available on enables.cx.sap.com, and we upload all of these information there. Having said that, I'll pass it off to Stan to deep dive to SSR implementation in Spartacus. Stan?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, sounding clear.
Okay, let me share my screen. Okay, I hope you can see it.
We do, thank you.
Yeah, so my name is Stan. Everyone calls me Stan, and I'm Spartacus developer from about 1.5 years already. Time goes very quickly in Spartacus. And yeah, I will talk today about server-side rendering in Spartacus with most of the stuff will be something that probably most of the people already know, but we'll cover also some specific things related to Spartacus. And yeah, the agenda of this meeting is basically first to answer some fundamental questions like what, why, and how, then explain where the SSR basically is included in our higher level caching architecture of Spartacus, how Spartacus leverages SSR, and how to not break SSR when you are developing your own CMS component, or you are customizing existing one with customizations. And after that, I think we can have a quick Q&A session if there will be some questions. So let's start with what is SSR. I think it's obvious, but let's go by let's start from the basics. So because of the fact that Spartacus is single page application, it means that it basically runs in browser. It executes all the code in the browser and do the actual rendering in the browser, and changes in the DOM or what you see on the screen happens in the client on the client side, so in the browser. And the issue with that is that for most of the cases, the app looks empty for many tooling that exists in internet, and I will cover it in a moment. But the solution for it is basically SSR, which allows you to do the initial rendering on the server. So you basically run the same code like the client will run in its browser. You do the rendering, and you can serve the pre-rendered meaningful content to the user or to the search box, search bots, or anything. So this is basically what SSR is about. And yeah, the question is why we need SSR. So the first and most important one is SEO, because yeah, it's the most important reason, because basically it's not as much true anymore as it was even a year ago, but for most of the cases, for search engines, crawlers and bots, if they will visit your page, your single page application, they won't be able to see any meaningful content, because they don't run JavaScript code, or the running JavaScript code is very limited. So you basically won't be able to see anything. And because of that, there is an issue with indexing, because without that, searchbot won't be able to index the data. Google made some changes lately in this manner, so technically it's possible for Google to index even single page application without SSR, but still it's not as bulletproof as it is. And we still have many other search engines to watch for, like Bing and many smaller ones. And also we have things like Facebook and Twitter, where you can share some links, and where you when you share some link, their bots also grabs the snapshot of the page, and that's what they will use. So they will use basically the SSR rendered content instead of blank page that is not yet loaded. The second most important reason. The second important reason is performance, because SSR speeds up initial page load. It slows down first time to byte, but with caching, which is very advisable, you can mitigate that. So basically, usually if implemented right, SSR will speed up initial page load, and it applies especially to mobile or low performance devices where parsing many kilobytes of JavaScript code can take a while. The last reason might be not very well used, but it's good to know that you can basically see the page or even navigate the page without JavaScript support at all. So it's also, as we can say, a benefit. And this is basically a difference. So on the left side, you can see how the app looks without SSR. You can, of course, make it a little better. You don't have to put loading here. You can make it with some image or whatever. But in general, there is no meaningful content, and the actual HTML is very plain. And with SSR, this is basically what you get. You get the whole page pre-rendered, and you have all the styles and all the things needed to display and to show content both to the user and both to the search engines are present in the DOM. So yeah, how to render on a server. Basically, we start with how to set up SSR with Spartacus, which it became very simple lately, and maybe I can even show it while we are doing the presentation. I just need to grab my my shell. So yeah, one more second. Okay, so yeah, because in Spartacus we released schematics lately, it's very easy to add Spartacus to the app, to the basic Angular app, and it's even easy to add SSR support and PWA support to the app, which was not the case not so long ago, and we have many questions about how to enable SSR and how to make it work. So better show than say. Let's first create some basic Angular app with the Angular CLI. It can take some time, but we will go to another slides. But the idea is that we can create a bare-bone Angular application using standard Angular CLI. Then we can use our schematics that will add Spartacus with SSR support to the app. And what we need to do afterwards is to basically run it, build and run it. There is also a special command that you can add schematic to existing Spartacus app, but yeah, it depends on the actual state of the app, and it not always works. So that's why it's red here. We are working to make it bulletproof, but at the moment it might work or might not. Okay, so we created a basic Angular app. Let's enter it. And I have prepared a very long command. Let me show it to you. It's basically, it's the same what we have here, but except adding SSR, I will also configure base site and our public server. So I run it, and we will go back to it in a moment. Yeah, about the implementation details, because these scripts will do everything for us, but it's good to know what is happening under the hood. That's why I will show it quickly. Basically, it uses few components. One is Angular Universal, which is called here ng Express Engine. We need to do some new entry point in our Angular application, which is S file. I can show how it looks like. Basically, if you can see, in normal Angular application, we have main.ts file. In the SSR base, we have second one, which is basically the entry point.
You're breaking up, Stan.
I can hear you, Farzine, but I can't hear Stan at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, same here.
Stan.
Can you hear me, guys? Because
yes,
I
you came back.
Connection. And where they finished?
You need to share a screen again.
Yeah, share your screen or rewind about 1 minute.
Okay, how long I was absent?
About 30 seconds, but now I've forgotten what you were saying. So.
Okay. So can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yes, all good.
Okay, the one with the black, this window, yeah?
We're explaining the main server file.
Implementation details.
Okay, so let me check. Yeah, it's the right one. Okay. So yeah, I was talking about the components of the SSR, how it works. So yeah, going back to it again, we need some additional files for the Angular to run on the server. It's basically app server module, which wraps our usual app module. It's main server TS, which is entry point for the Angular app from the server, and it's separate server TS script, which basically uses our Angular app, wraps it into ng Express Engine, and serves all the requests to the user. So this is the main part that use our application on the server. And after compiling, we get basically a server.js file that is used on the server to run in Node and works as a basically HTTP server. So each request that goes to that server is doing the rendering and sending the result to the user. So yeah, this is how it works under the hood. And about the production deployment, as I said, caching is very highly recommended because making SSR rendering can take some time because you need to do all the calls to the backend. Like if you are on the home page, you need to load the homepage data, you need to load some carousels, etc. So it's very good to cache those responses. And basically, in our cloud deployment, we use by default we use Nginx with reverse proxy to do that caching on the first layer, and we use something like production process manager for Node.js that basically run that file, that server.js file that I showed a second ago. And yeah, about the caching architecture, in general, it looks like this. It looks quite complicated, but actually it's very simple, and the SSR part is here. So I will quickly start with simple explanation what all this is about. So without caching, we have a web browser, web client, wherever, the place where our JavaScript code runs. And yeah, basically this is the client browser. The client browser fetches the JavaScript file from the server, the images, the static content, and calls and do API calls to the backend. And this is how it works. This is how it works without any caching. And we can add some caching layers here. So the first one would be CDN, distribute edge cache, for example, where we can cache both static content, both our JS and CSS files, and we can even cache some responses from our OCC backend. We can go even further and add SSR here. So this is the SSR, and in SSR mode, the user browser, the first request from the user browser goes to the SSR when it gets the page pre-rendered and gives it back to the user. And after the browser will display SSR, it will quickly switch to the dynamic part and re-render our single page dynamic application, because SSR is very static, so there won't be any dynamic items. One more thing that we do with SSR is that we are, because for make SSR rendering, we need to do some calls to our backend, like for product data or for some template data, and we do it on the backend first. So after we would do render in the browser, we would have to do the same calls still from here to here. That's why we use also transfer state. So we basically grab all the things that you get from the backend, pack it into transfer state, and transfer it to the web client. So when the web client will get the SSR rendered page, it will also get all the data, or most of the data, that it needs to do the actual dynamic rendering. So we save a couple of requests when we start our app. And the important thing here is that the SSR is only valid for anonymous content. So any context of the user is not present in SSR. That's why it can be cached. So if the web client is, for example, rendered, it does not use that transfer state. But it's I would say it's a rare situation, because when we add a service worker to this case, which basically means PWA support, we also cache all the files in the browser itself. So after first visit, we install service worker in the browser, and we get both JavaScript files, both images, and even some responses from the OCC backend cached. So we don't need to call SSR anymore. Because the service worker gets ownership of our application and do the calls by itself, and cache all the data that it needs. And yeah, let's go to the next topic, SSR in Spartacus. First thing I want to point out is that SSR is a very broad topic, and it covers many different features. And that's why it's very good to use our documentation, because we have a couple of places that we describe SSR and how it works. Those are, for example, links that describe SSR related functionality in Spartacus. I will go to them now. But yeah, generally, documentation of Spartacus is very robust, so it's very good to use it. So yeah, the first case is basically using SSR transfer state. As I said, we are transferring the state from the server to the actual app, and it's at the moment in Spartacus, it's configurable. It works on a store level, so we can transfer parts of the store to the actual app. And as you can see, this is how the configuration looks like. We define the parts of the of our store that should be included in transfer state. And with this configuration, our app will basically put that content into HTML that is rendered for that specific page, and our Spartacus SPA app will read that, and it won't have to do those calls to the backend because of the fact that the result of those calls is already available to it in the browser. One other smaller feature is disabling CMS components. It's in SSR. It's also very simple. It uses our CMS component mapping and configuration. With this, you can very easily disable CMS components from rendering in Spartacus. You can have some components that don't give any value, for example, to the search engines, or you can have any different reasons that you don't want to render some components on the SSR, and you can do it with this simple switch. We also have a very fancy feature that we added very lately, is detecting automatically the site config from the URL. It uses the URL that Spartacus run and send it to the OCC backends, get the base site configuration and reasons from that configuration about the base site and all the basic configuration stuff like default language, supported languages, default currency, supported currency. So you don't have to configure it automatically in the app, and it's a basics. It's also needed for multi-site support. So it's first very convenient from a single site perspective, but also required for multi-site support. And yeah, to do it without SSR, we would have to do initial call to the OCC for the configuration, which basically would block user experience. So we won't be able to show anything until we get the configuration from the backend. And doing it in SSR allows us to do all that stuff on the server side and put the result into the DOM with the transfer state we spoke about previously. So with it, we can basically instantly get the page with the automatically resolved configuration based on the domain where the page is open. So it's very useful here. We also have many things related to metadata, like page meta resolvers that allows to define title of the page, description, image, all the things that is important from the search engine's perspective. And we also support JSON LD schemas. It's something like this one on steroids, which is also used by Google, for example, and search engines to display search results better from our page, and also reason about the content on our page. And it all lands in SSR, and then it can be read by those crawlers and bots. Yeah, we are close.
I'm sorry. So yeah, I want to just to make sure that with this we have like time.
Yeah, I'm controlling the time, and we are very close to finish. So yeah, one last part: how to be SSR aware, basically because Spartacus is meant to be customized and extended, and I think those notes are quite important. There are few rules that you can find also in our documentation, but basically because of the fact that the same code needs to be run on the server, you need to you can't use the stuff that is only available in browser. So that's why you cannot access, for example, window object natively. We are providing something like window ref that you can safely use in Spartacus. You cannot manipulate native elements directly. You should use Angular renderer for it, and you should watch out with set timeouts or AricJS timeouts, because running them can basically make rendering of SSR much longer than it should. And one last thing about being SSR aware, it's easy to create components that are SSR aware, so behave differently on the backend and different on the server, and we use it in Spartacus already. The idea is that you can customize very simply by using those two methods, like is_platform browser and is_platform server, to check if you are on the browser or you're on the server, and then you can run the code differently, or you can run different code for each case. So yeah, I said I will show how the app works, but let's not take a time, because you can trust me that it works. You can test it on yourself. So let's go to the questions.
There were a few questions on the chat, and I believe people answered. Is there any other question?
Yeah, hi. I got one question here.
Sure.
I just wanted to know if you do any BDD tests, and what frameworks do you use in general for testing Spartacus that way?
In general, we use Cypress for end-to-end tests. You said end-to-end test, or because I did not get correct?
Yep, end-to-end. Yep.
Yeah, we were using Protractor at the beginning, but it was very problematic, and we are now using Cypress, and it gives us much more robust results. Still not perfect, but we are quite happy with it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. To be able to catch up with the time, if you have any other question, feel free to contact us on our Slack channel, and then you can find the stand over there, and then you can ask question in the help channel. The next section is an implementation topic. Partner Harvinder is from Smart Commerce team, and they are implementing a B2B Spartacus implementation. I'm going to hand it over to Harvinder, and then we go from there. Harvinder?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. So I will share my screen here.
Yes, we see the browser.
Okay, cool. So a little info about me. Harvinder Singhman is my name. Working in a company, Smart Commerce, and I'm a consultant in position of Angular developer. Today I'm going to show you demo or a little of our development state for our one customer, which is Förch. And for this customer, we are using Spartacus as a storefront, and it's a B2B customer where we're using SAP HANA ecosystem, and storefront is obviously on Spartacus. And we, in our milestone, we wanted to be go live in 1 year with our German market, and then followed by other countries. In our development team, we are near about 25 developer, maybe 2 are Spartacus Angular developer, followed by then 5 Commerce Cloud and 4 front-end and SCPI developer. Who we are from Smart Commerce. So the Förch is our one of customer, or the first customer where we are implementing Spartacus. So I will be showing you a demo now, what we have achieved till now, and what we want to achieve in future. So I guess everyone is seeing my storefront. So this is the basic website. As I mentioned, we are still in development, so we are not ready with it. But in next year, till August, we wanted to go live with the German market. So a little overview here, as it's a B2B. So in normal, if we are in Spartacus B2C, I can show a nearby also here. We don't have store selector here in our normal shop. So we also implemented here store selector, where you can like switch to other web stores. And for this demo purpose, I have deactivated the prices here. So you would be seeing just 0. Yeah. And then we have a normal card, but little bit different from what we know from standard B2C from Spartacus here. With this framework, we did a little bit changes, and so that, for example, here we can add duplicate article, because in normal shop we can add one article at a time. So here, what we want to achieve here, that in B2B felt that you can add more than one article with the same article number. Yeah, so I will try to log in here, and then we'll show you. I just have to grab my email address. So I can log into the shop. Yep. So the first thing which we had to configure was the checkout process. If we know from the normal Spartacus checkout process, we always go through delivery mode, payment, and then we come to review order. But in our case, our customer don't want these all steps. We just have two simple steps. It's a shipping address and the order view. In our process, all the orders are invoice based, so we didn't want to do like go through all the steps. And Spartacus made us for really easy. For that, what we do, or what we had to do, was just to configure checkout process to the config from Spartacus and mention there that what kind of step we wanted to have. As you see here from my screenshot, we wanted to have just shipping address and a review order, and that's make us really easy to work with this framework, where you could just in app module can configure your steps. And as you see, after configuring two steps, I have just two steps, which is shipping and review order. That's as we were implementing this Spartacus from the beginning, also from the time there was a beta version, and continuously we are working and upgrading every time. And so there was some changes which we did already, and they come after, and then we have to remove as the SAP team, Spartacus team, working on them, and they are on the list. And yeah, the little bit also change here from the normal process, that we can provide order number and comment. And that's what we did here. As I mentioned already, we can add a duplicate article. This is because in B2B process, we have cost center. User can have the same article twice with different shipping addresses, and that's why we have to provide it. And to do this thing, we have to work a little bit, because in normal Spartacus framework, in NGRX in store, whole objects are saved on the base of article number, and as article number can be only once in this state, so it was not possible to do it like this, and we have to move it to PK, the object's ID, to achieve this. And then the second part, which we implemented here, which we wanted to have it. If we see a normal process in normal our Spartacus, we don't have option to keep logged in. I discussed before with Spartacus team that we wanted to have it, but don't know, they not implemented yet, but we wanted to have this. And so, but there is already a configuration in Spartacus where you can say which object you want to, object's value, object want to save in local storage. And from same configuration, we did a little changes here, that whenever customer click here, I want to be logged in, and then he really logged in, so that we can save this information in state. So normally in normal Spartacus, we don't save a refresh token, but by doing this, we could save then refresh token into the stage. So the third point which I wanted to mention here, I have to log in again. Let me get the email address again. So we really like it that Spartacus make it really easy to for the components which are there to really easily to customize them and to reuse them. For example, in this card which we seeing here, we wanted to use same as saved card. I saw sometime this feature was there, and I don't know if it's been removed. Like we wanted to have some article and want to save these article as our saved card that we can do. We're still working on it. It's under process. Then watch list, where we could also use same card and same component. I saw that this is already, I think, implemented in 1.3. I see there, and but we are also still on this process. And I really like the draft logic from the Spartacus team and the OCC module, because there are sometimes there are some services which we don't want that the Spartacus team has entwickelt, because it's B2C and B2B. It's a little bit different, so that we can extend, still use a little bit from those services, and through the OCC module, we can also replace from the backend that what should be the side effect, that backend call that we want to manipulate and do little something different. That's what we did. Till now, what we have really hard time, I would say, or take a bit long to work around was to change card from article number to PK. And as you know from the normal Spartacus storefront, if you see on the demo, when you add article to cart, there's like pop-up, and this pop-up is working on article number. What we didn't want to do that, as we don't have PK in the hand. That's why we're still working it to improve it a little bit more. And second part was to for us was difficult to change the store. Spartacus provide to change languages from that you can change from English to German to any languages, that make it easy from. But we wanted to not only change languages, but we also wanted to change our store, our website, which is like, I don't want to go to Förch Germany web shop and I want to go for UK web shop, which had totally different article, totally different content. Everything is different, and I think this feature is coming. I don't know really sure about it, but that's took us for a little bit time. But I wanted, we wanted to wish more from Spartacus team is to wrap all the slots in a container. Normally, what's happening here, that all the container in our template, we just have slots, and if you see that, like this landing page template, he just have slots there. But we want to support Internet Explorer, and as a B2, I don't know about B2C and B2B process, there are still customers which using Internet Explorer, even they don't use the computer and they just want to place an order maybe, and they still have old decades computer and they're still using Internet Explorer, and we still have to support it. And for that, we had some workaround. We are supporting Internet Explorer 11, but still we need a logic to support CSS. For that, we wish that if there would be a possible to wrap slots in a container that I could say these 2 slots are wrapped on a one container. That we would really wish that if this would be possible, and that would make our work really easy, so we can start supporting Internet Explorer. So yeah, that was our shop where we using Spartacus, and as a B2B has changed some functionality and keeping touch with Spartacus team and getting always response. Yeah, I would say that was it. And thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Harvinder. It was great to see the both positive and negative side of it. Definitely, we're going to work on that. Let's keep working together to make it even better. If anybody has any question, it's great that we have about 10 more minutes. In the meantime, I'm going to pop up a poll to collect some feedback for our next session. And then if there is any
Lost Farzin. Anybody else here?
I'm here.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So if anybody has any question, that's what I meant. Sorry about that.
Yeah,
Oh,
I just
it
have
sounded
one
like you dropped.
Oh, no, I'm here.
Okay.
I just have a quick question here.
Sure, please go ahead.
Yeah, the Förch B2B site shared earlier. Just wanted to know that all that work that was done by the gentleman here was all based on Spartacus B2C project that's available online, right? The customization.
Yes, we're using B2C and change a bit it to turn into B2B.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other question? For Spartacus team, technical, SSR, roadmap for Harvinder. And thank you very much for responding to the polls. It's important for us to get feedback so we can keep going with this format or we change it.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much, Harvinder. So to wrap up, our next session, as I mentioned, it's the next 2 months, January 24th, 10 a.m. Eastern time. We're going to adjust based on your feedback to continue the same format or the new format. It is critical, it's important for us to hear from you and to be able to work together to improve the stuff. Is there any other question? If not, we can end the session. And thank you very much for joining.
Yeah, thanks everybody for joining, and thanks to our presenters. Really great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Lord would not speak her name, every time a little different, so you cannot predict when she is coming home. And when you look in her eye, you see it's falling from the skies. We are just borrowing. We are just borrowing to build our little empires. Pray we miss the brush fire. We are just borrowing. We are just she comes a rumbling, turning it up. Break up the ruckus, take the dirt bag suckers. We are just borrowing. We are just borrowing to build our little empires. Pray we miss the brush fire. Oh. Clouds so that she can make it rain. Wash away a tiny castle. Don't you feel like an asshole with your big strong beams ripped out with such ease? Yeah, you never saw it coming, but in hindsight that was dumb. 'Cause